Welcome back to Plant Etc. It's the time of year now where we are planting our garden. We recently had a pretty bad cold snap in my area, so we're safely inside now. Let's plan for spring. As you're daydreaming for springtime and all your planting that you're going to have for the summer, take a look outside and see how big is your garden? How well did things work last year? Did you actually know where north, south, east, and west are in your garden? Have a plan and make sure that you make a note of that so you can see where to put your really sun-loving plants and where you can put some plants that love a little bit more shade. So think about all that as you're planning and putting things to paper. We're going to look at my garden and how it's laid out and how big it is now. So my garden is actually an allotment garden. I think I've said that before. And it's about 1,000 square feet. It's actually quite big. I have 9 garden boxes varying in sizes from 4 to 12 feet to 4 to 6 feet in length. As you can see here in the picture, I have flower beds at each end of the garden. I have a working area where I have a compost area and a toolbox area. I have my blackberries, of course. I also have a really nice relaxing area under a plum tree, which provides some shade. And I have a little project that I did last summer. I did a little water feature, so all that to make it very welcoming and very relaxing. When I decide to go there, I usually go for a whole day or a good half a day. So I want to make sure I have a place where I can sit and have a cup of tea and kind of hang out or even eat my lunch. And in the summer, somewhere I can hang out. Once in a while, I do kind of sit and read a book. Not very often, but I do that once in a while. So think about your garden and think about the different areas that you want to create. It would be nice to have a relaxing area, a working area where you have your compost and toolbox, and of course where you're going to put your flower beds, where you're going to put your vegetable boxes. So think about all that as you lay out your garden. This is a very rough little drawing that I did, but it works out. It shows you really where I have everything set out. So do the same thing for your own garden. Thing I did forget to mention is that in the path for my garden, I have wood chips. I have wood chips everywhere. It helps you keep everything kind of clean and less muddy. I just get free wood chips from the city, so it's very simple. It's nothing that I buy. If you don't have wood chips, you can also use leaves. There's a lot of people at the allotment that just collect tons and tons of bags in the fall and then just put that in the pathway, and it slowly deteriorates over the summer, but it's a nice way also to keep your paths all clean and it minimize the weeds impact. So now let's think about what we're going to plant for spring. So I've already given you a planting kind of layout of what to start in February. So here we have bed 1. And in bed 1, I'm really putting my onions. So these onions are my overwinter onions, which are 2 types of overwinter onions, which are the Bridgers and the Patterson onions that I get. I'm showing you a picture here of these onions. Those were the ones I collected last year. They were huge. I'm really happy with the size of them, really, really happy. So that's the area where I put them. I'm showing you another picture here. This is plot 1 and 2. Plot number 2 is where I'm going to be putting my peas this year. Last year I had the disaster of putting the sweet potatoes in there. So this year I've decided I'm trying something else. So it is kind of on a sunny side, and for the winter, since the peas go in pretty early, they'll get more sunlight that way. I'm showing you a picture again. That's to the right there. When you see it, that's plot number 2. Okay, so plot number 3 is where I'm going to put my tomatoes and my basil. Really right now, I don't know which variety yet of tomatoes or basil I'm going to start to put in there, but I'm just showing you where it's going to be. You can see I covered it in the winter. I had this layer of nice compost underneath just to get the bed ready. If you haven't done that, whereby you added some compost to an area that you're not using, just cover it up with something because you don't want it to go to waste and be blown around or washed away with too much rain. So in this case, you see I've covered it with plastic because I have a good layer of compost and leaves underneath that I wanted to make sure survived the winter and actually went into the soil to provide great nutrients, hopefully for the tomatoes that I'm going to plant later on. Okay, bed number 5. So bed number 5 is where for the springtime I'm going to have my Swiss chard and radish. I'm kind of splitting that bed into a half and half scenario. The Swiss chard is of course the ones that I've already started. I showed you that. That's my bright right. And here I'm showing you the kind of radishes that I'm going to put in. And I might even try some daikon to see if that would work. So this is kind of like a bed that I have that is kind of in the middle. It is south facing, and it does lend itself to have a really good sunny summer crop in there, which I'll tell you later what I'm going to put in there. But for the springtime, I'm going to stick to the Swiss chard and some radish for now. Number 6, now that one I've just filled it up with red Russian garlic. It's completely full. You can see here I planted that back in October. I'm showing you the bed when I was getting it ready to fill up. I love garlic, of course, like lots of other people, and I started tons of it. So I'm hoping it all works out, and then you'll see hopefully the results in July when I go to pull them out, that they should look good. I'll do a little progression video to show how nice they look for the springtime. And so I'll keep you up to date on that one. Now moving to bed 7. Bed 7 is actually closer to the plum tree and gets lots of shade in the summer. So that's where I like to put kind of like my leafy 7 and 8, actually I should say. Both of those beds get quite a bit of shade from the tree. So then that's where I put my leafy plants. So for bed 7, those are the winter February planting that I told you to start, which I'm going to put my collards, my kale, and my broccolini in that one. And I've started a few of the plants. I'm giving you a little bit of a number there. I'm going to do 3 to 6 plants per row, and I'll show you when I plant these in the springtime. Right now there is some planting in there right now already. Those are the 2 beds that you see with the mesh. There is some leaves in there that I planted last fall. I'll probably clean those out. We've had a pretty harsh winter, like I showed you, with some snow and all that, so I don't think much have survived. So I'll clean it out in the spring and then put in those collards and kale that I showed you last time that I've already started and have grown. Bed number 8, and like I said already, bed number 7 and 8 do get quite a bit of shade. They're actually the north facing bed, so that kind of makes sense. I'm going to put my cilantro in there, my lettuce, my arugula, and my spinach. So again, the leafy greens idea, 3 to 6 plants per row, and I'll show you when I plant that. So I'm hoping again for those that they will do well. I'm showing you those 2 beds, which is 7 and 8, again covered with the mesh there in the garden. Now the last bed that I have is bed number 9, and in bed number 9 I also split it between broad beans and garlic. I had some leftover, or not leftover, but extra garlic I should say, that I wanted to plant, so I did half of that with garlic and I did the broad beans. The broad beans I usually buy in bulk. They're very easy to start. I'm showing you where they are, where I plant them. That's bed number 9. That's actually the bed that is the closest to the worm bin that I work on most of the time. So yeah, so that's my garden. That's the layout. As you can see, I have 9 beds, like I said. Number 3 to 6 are about 4 to 12 feet. Number 7 to 9 are about 4 to 6 and 8 feet. They kind of vary a little bit. And 1 and 2 are kind of like a big square bed where I put things. And again, I have these nice arches that I'm hoping I'm going to grow some climbing plants on there at some point. They're at each end of the garden. I have a little one too in one of the entries there. And of course I have my working areas. So now I'm just going to cover a little bit of the working area that I have. For the working area, you can see my 3 compost bins there. So those are the compost bins that I use a lot. And you do have to have a little bit of a compost bin in your garden. It really helps for you to add some nutrient to the soil. I mean, I don't need to repeat this over and over again. It's very easy to, use your leafy kind of leftover scrap from home and compost that. It's easy, it's free, and it's so simple to do. Just dump everything into the soil, cover it up, don't put any meats or cheese in there to kind of not attract certain kind of animals, but it's such an easy way to get some really beneficial nutrients for your gardens. So simple. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is tools. This is not usually of concern, of course, if you have a house and you have a shed or you have a garage. But when you're on an allotment, you have to bring your own tool from everything that you need. Your hoses, your rakes, everything has to be brought in. I'm showing you here my toolbox that I have at the allotment. It's very simple. I do have extra tools that I keep in the car. So my little mini truck, like my husband calls it. So yeah, so I do bring some tools in the back of the car too, my weed whacker and things like that I don't leave at the allotment just in case something gets stolen. But I do have my basic tools definitely at the allotment. Last summer I did a really big job about cleaning the box and kind of getting things organized, getting bins in there. You can see all my organization, getting the small tools kind of to stick with some bungee on the lid of the box just to keep it out from getting all mixed up into the bins. So yeah, so try and get as organized as you can, of course, in your tool shed or in your garage, or if you just have like a little toolbox like I do, as much as you can in your toolbox. So I hope you enjoyed this. This is kind of like a quick little bit of a video that can maybe help you out to plan out and get started with your spring your spring planting and get that going in this kind of still cold, very winter days that we're still having. Okay, happy gardening. Thanks for joining. Make sure you subscribe and like and do all those wonderful clicky things, and have fun. Thank you.